Yo, what is good, fam? Agent O here with another movie review, and today I just got out of seeing Captain Marvel, and I don't know, I was feeling somewhat a little mixed at first, but it's not in a bad way. I enjoyed the movie a lot overall, and I think you should definitely check it out. But, like I always say, watch the movie for yourself and develop your own opinion. Stop listening to all these people who are passing judgment on a film they themselves have yet to see and making all these posts about all these negative posts and whatnot. See it for yourself and decide whether you like it or not. But that being, now that I've gotten that out of the way, I want to talk about the movie itself. And of course, like all Marvel movies, there are some things that worked and there are some things that didn't quite work. You have to go into the movie with an open mind because the way the movie is, it isn't quite your typical MCU film. The movie is more reserved, and what I mean by that is Marvel movies lately are, for the most part, with the exception of, say, Black Panther and Captain America Winter Soldier, they're outspoken films because they're supposed to be summer blockbuster popcorn flicks. Aspects of the movie are taken to an extreme, like when things are supposed to be comedic and funny, they're like very comedic and very funny. The jokes have to really hit, to get the whole crowd laughing. Like the comedy in Thor Ragnarok and the Guardians movies are comedic to the point of almost being slapstick at times. And so that being said, the action is very bombastic. It's very kinetic, and very action oriented doesn't really mean anything. It sounds really redundant, but it's just being thrown at your face, and I'm all for that. I like that kind of action. But this movie kind of kept all these kinds of aspects that are major parts of the Marvel formula to a minimum. And whenever you keep action to a minimum, for me, that's a personal gripe. I get what they're trying to do with the film because they want it to be more character driven, and I'm totally on board with that. But give me action. So I'll get more into that in a bit. I want to talk about the that reserved aspect of the movie. So it's the elements are, and the execution is more reserved. It's more grounded. The jokes and the comedy, they're in there and they are funny. They do get the desired reaction without being in your face about it. And I think that's why some people were complaining about Brie Larson's acting from the trailers and saying she's not a good actor. But I think it was purposely done in this film that way because one of the aspects about her character that when you meet her in the beginning of the film is that she's supposed to be controlling her emotions and using her head more than using her emotions when she's going through stressful situations and whatnot, when she as being a soldier. That's one of the big elements. Another big element is that the movie is trying to establish Carol Danvers not just as a hero, but also establishing her humanity and her as a person first. Then the hero part kind of comes second. She's also rediscovering herself as a person because she's suffering from amnesia and she's got bits and pieces of her memory. You can tell from the trailers that's what they were kind of going for, and honestly, it's what DC should have been doing more with Superman in the DCEU. I feel like they kind of pulled it off more so in Captain Marvel than they have with the Superman films. And so because of this, everyone else's acting is also more reserved and more grounded because once again, they're all trying to play up the humanity aspect of the film. So you have to think human, but a little less character type. Like Star-Lord is a character type. When he talks, you expect him to wisecrack and say, quippy things because he's a puckish rogue Han Solo type. But then he also has character traits and personality traits. But the Star-Lord persona kind of comes first, and the rest of it comes second. And they're trying to flip the script with Carol with this movie. You can't really translate that into the film or into the film's trailers because you'd be giving away aspects of the plot. And this is why I always say people need to stop just dissecting and analyzing every friggin' frame of a superhero movie trailer. They're purposely intended for you not to get the whole story. Even Ben Mendelsohn's character, Talos, is not played up as a straight up one note villain like the roles he usually plays. I mean, he does a good job in those villain roles. I like him. He's convincing and he's amusing in those when he plays the villain. But in this movie, his character has more of a well-rounded personality, and he shows a wider range of emotions because Talos is complicated. And I just want to leave it at that because I don't want to get into spoilers because I would be revealing major parts of the plot of the movie. I also loved seeing young Monica Rambeau because I'm a big Spectrum fan after reading Next Wave and various other comics with her in them. And I loved all the little implications and the groundwork that they're laying down for her character to eventually make her MCU debut as Spectrum when she's an adult. And I can't wait for that. And, you know, like I said, once again, a big aspect of the plot is Carol rediscovering herself as a person. And I love the way they did that visually in the first act of the film with her amnesia. They show bits and pieces of and snippets of her past, and it's all jumbled and out of order, and you saw some of that stuff in the trailers, so I knew there was going to be like an amnesia trope in the film, but it's compiled much the same way that once again the Marvel trailers are handled. It's how it's compiled, and so seeing the sequence leaves you just as lost and confused as Carol is as to like what's all going on, and you're right along with her on the ride as the movie continues and the truth is slowly revealed to both you and Captain Marvel at the same time. Once again I want to get back into the action, and the action was really good. It you know, but as usual, I always want to see Marvel take it further. Like I said earlier, action is very bombastic and kinetic, but I think the story they're trying to tell you is they've kept it to a minimum. And I wanted more. They make sure to give you the goods action-wise, but the main focus is on Carol and the person that she's becoming. And without giving too much away, the third act, which is the most action-packed of the film because, you know, that's part of the action movie formula, she's literally doing Superman level shit in the movie, and I was loving it. I mean, it's clearly established through her actions why she's the most powerful character in the MCU at the moment, and I'm cool with that. Like I said, I enjoyed it, and it left me wanting more. As far as the music in the film, honestly, I didn't find the film score itself all that memorable while watching the film. It's not a bad score. It's heroic sounding. It's suspenseful. I liked the use of the retro synth sounds and the synth drum samples that are incorporated along with the orchestral arrangements. But that's also starting to become a trend that I'm starting to see in movies, in big budget movies, you know, because they did it in Aquaman as well. But I think Aquaman had a better score, had a more interesting score. The orchestral parts felt really traditional, and it's not a bad thing. It's just nowadays you want the music to have a character all on its own with these superhero films, and the movie didn't give Captain Marvel a memorable superhero theme, and I think she really needs that. You know, that's, you know, you don't hear it throughout the film, and I've noticed that a lot of movies have been doing that. You know, they need to have each hero needs to have their own theme. I love how Black Panther has his own theme. When the Amazing Spider-Man movies, in the second one, Spider-Man had a theme. Not so much in Homecoming, but I think the licensed music that was used in the film to help establish the time period, because after all, this is a period flick, even though it takes place in the 90s, it's still things have changed so much since then. You could consider it a period film. But the licensed music they use in the movie overshadows the score by far. They didn't saturate the movie with tons of licensed tracks like they did in Guardians of the Galaxy, but the songs will be super memorable because they were all major hits back in the day. I mean, I knew like literally all the songs that they played, not because I listened to all those bands or all those groups, but I knew those songs because I listened to a lot of their music. And because they were all major hits. The artists were majority all women, which obviously for obvious reasons is, it was done on purpose, because after all, this movie at its core is a female empowerment movie. And it came out during the movie debuted on International Women's Day, which brings me to the subject of feminism, the feminism aspects that were incorporated into the film. They're pretty straightforward without beating you over the head, or being like really pretentious. They're kind of there, and then they serve their purpose. And the main focus is on the sexism and marginalization and the mental effects it's had on Carol throughout her life. Because after all, no one wants to be told what's an acceptable gender role for them to be and how they should be in that gender role, or that nobody wants to be told that they can't pursue their goals or their dreams, or told that they can't be somebody, or told that they can't do something because they're a woman, or because they're black, or because they're Asian, or whatever. These are feelings that literally anyone can relate to, and I hate to use that word relate, because you hear it a lot in a lot of these YouTube movie critics and reviewers, because they say, oh, so-and-so and such are so relatable. Spider-Man, Peter Parker, he's so relatable because he's an everyman, and he goes through the same dilemmas and struggles that I go through. But, when people say stuff like that, to me, it comes off as that person doesn't actually have any individual thought or opinion, and they're just regurgitating a talking point that they heard someone else say, so they sound like they're legitimate and that they're in the know. Because honestly, you can't actually relate to Captain Marvel. None of us has super duper strength and flies and shoots prismatic energy out of our bodies, but you can relate to Carol Danvers. And even if you can't relate to Carol, because like I said, I don't think it's wholly necessary for you to, you can have empathy for her and for the things that she's went through in her life, because empathy is the first step in understanding and acknowledging things about people and what they're going through that may be outside of your comfort zone or your little bubble of existence because you've been ignorant. And the fact that there's a large majority of negativity that's been aimed at this movie and the star and the director only proves that these messages are not only necessary but very relevant in today's society, and they needed to be said in the film. I'm gonna keep it real here, man. That very vocal minority of haters and shitposters that I'm talking about, they're triggered snowflake looking for a safe space, sexist, misogynistic white man babies. Now, in the spirit of diversity, I'm sure there are some black men peppered in there as well, but I'd bet my life on it that the majority of the guys being the loudest, being the angriest, are all white dudes that don't even read the comics and watch the movies, that are, they're the ones that are making the biggest noise. And once again, it proves why the movie and its messages are needed. If the mere depiction of a super strong headlining female MCU movie and the mere mention of the word feminism being uttered in interviews by the director, who also is female, also is a woman, of the movie, was enough for all these guys to voice their discontent with clickbait articles like Marvel is destroying the MCU and they're wasting millions of dollars on the Captain Marvel movie. They're gonna destroy it all, and then they turn around and they play the victim, claiming that this is an attack on masculinity. It should tell you a lot about the kind of guys that they are, and what it's telling you isn't very good. I mean, they're pathetic, apathetic, lethargic devils, and they need to go somewhere, sit down, and shut the fuck up, because these movies aren't just for you, and it's not always about you. You know, like I said earlier, the movie at its core is about female empowerment, and it's about defining who you are and on your own terms with no restrictions and no one telling you how you're supposed to be. Even the use of her powers throughout the film is a metaphor for restricting one's true potential, because she's told to control her emotions, and her powers are they work through her emotions. The more worked up she is, the more power comes out. And so by the end of the movie, Carol is empowered, like super empowered, both literally and figuratively. Even like little Monica Rambeau understood it because there's a part of the movie where she tells her mom, Maria Rambeau, to get out there and do the impossible things that she's always wanted to do and is more than capable of doing as a pilot. I've always loved when comic books tackle subjects that are deemed taboo by society, and to see films like Black Panther and Captain Marvel take on these kinds of subject matter, it's a good thing. I can't wait to see the sequel, not just because of Avengers Endgame, but more so the seeds that they've planted in this first film and how all that's going to play out in her next solo outing. Overall, I do think that this is a definite watch for fans of the comic, fans of the MCU, and, you know, women that want representation in comic book movie form. You know, it's a good movie. Anyway, you know, that's gonna pretty much do it for me. If you liked the review, please Hulk smash that like button. Also, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you can get alerted to newly uploaded content. If you saw the movie, if you saw Captain Marvel, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on the movie. So also hit me up in the comment section. And until next time, I'm Agent O, and I'm out. Peace.